Were you on the edge of your seat the last time you saw a presenter reading a PowerPoint slide on stage? Is that really what you paid for? I don't think so. So why are people still reading slides when they're presenting or speaking? Don't you want to stand out, and don't you want your audience to be engaged and on the edge of their seat, begging for more information from you, right? PowerPoint slides and reading scripts are so 1998. Say bye-bye. Don't you want to learn how to be more playful yet professional when speaking and presenting? Of course you do. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Fane Brandt with a LinkedIn Bakery, serving up bite-sized tips so you don't get overwhelmed. And this is Bite-Sized Tips for Busy Entrepreneur. And I have a very, very special guest today, Gary. We're going to bring him on in just one moment. But first, a big shout out to our sponsor, StreamYard. Boom. Thank you, StreamYard, for being the official sponsor for this show, Bite-Sized Tips for Busy Entrepreneurs. StreamYard is what we're currently using to go live on multiple platforms. So you guys type in hashtag StreamYard and show them some love. Also, if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, go ahead and type that in and let us know if you have any questions or thoughts or anything. And Gary and I, we promise to go back and engage with all of you at the end. So let's talk about Gary. Let's see. So Gary is the founder of Breakthrough Play, and he's a sought-after corporate facilitator and international keynote speaker. High five, Gary. That's right. Gary and I met a few years ago, and we're going to tell you that story. I'm going to let Gary come on and tell you about how he went from an improv actor to a facilitator. His background is in marketing. We have a couple mutual friends that we love. We might be big super fans of them. So let's go ahead and bring Gary on today, and let's get this show started. Hey, Gary.
What's happening?
I love that. Is that part of the play? I love it. So, Gary, you know what? Let's start off with how we met, our mutual friend, and we might have had a little disagreement at the beginning,
just a little bit,
just a little bit, but we've overcome it, folks. So don't worry.
We did.
So you guys might know this person, Stephanie Liu. I don't know. She's kind of famous.
She's kind of a big deal.
She's kind of a big deal, kind of a rock star. I'd call her a rock star. Yeah. And let me go over here. She's kind of a rock star to me and to Gary. And I got so excited when I saw her on the Midway, like 4 years ago, and we did a live, and I had been following her. Who's this woman inside the laptop? How did she do all that cool stuff? And so I, was stalking her online or following her, call it what you want. And then I got to meet her in person, and I've always said, oh my God, I'm her Stephanie Liu's #1 fan, right? Well, then Gary was like, wait a minute, Mara. Wait a minute. I saw some comments. Gary was in some comments of some feeds, and he's like, no. I'm her #1 fan. And so we went to dinner earlier this year, and we resolved this because I did not know, Gary, you and Stephanie Liu have known each other for years.
Yeah. We go way back. We go all the way back to 2008.
Yeah, so you got me beat on that, but I still am a really huge, big fan of Stephanie. So we've decided to share the crown and the title of being her biggest and oldest fans.
Yes.
How do you like that?
High five. There you go.
High five. So Gary, why don't you tell our audience, the improv, and I've heard improv can really help you become a better presenter and speaker. But why don't you tell the audience, where you come from and how you got into this role and all about your business now?
Cool. All right. Well, in order for me to really just talk about where I came from, we need to go back. So let's just do the flashback. And I am, as Mary mentioned, I worked in digital marketing. That's where I met Stephanie Liu, and I was just in my career. And, as you move up your career, you want to get better. And being in digital marketing, especially working at one of the world's largest independent digital marketing agencies, I found myself in meetings where I was having to present. I was having to present data. I was having to pitch to clients. And at the time, I, like a lot of you, maybe was a bit scared of like looking dumb. All right. And I was that guy reading all the bullets on the slide because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. And a mentor of mine, said, "Hey, you should probably look into increasing your public speaking." And like a lot of you, public speaking was, the second biggest thing to death. I had to do it because it was for work, but it wasn't something that I like really sought out to do. And so I, did like what most people do. I looked up, all right, how do I do that? And Toastmasters is the biggest thing. But for me, Toastmasters just wasn't my jam. I started doing it, but I felt really nervous because they were judging me. And I felt like I was put into this box and I was having to present just like everybody else. And they were judging me because of ums. And I just didn't feel like me. I didn't feel like Gary. I felt like the robot of people that go through Toastmasters. And so I told a mentor, I was like, I got some really good structure. I learned a little bit more about storytelling. I learned, more about public speaking in that framework, but it just wasn't for me. But I did see that there was potential for me to get better. I did see that when I did speak in front of clients and I was more confident, I was more effective. I did see how speaking can help me be more of influence. And then he said, I got something for you. Why don't you take an improv class? And I was like, improv? Me? I'm not a comedian. I don't think I can stand up and be funny. And he said, just take it. And so I took it. And I was scared. I was super scared. Just like maybe some of you are, just thinking about taking an improv class because you might have heard about improv through Whose Line Is It Anyway? And maybe you went and saw improv and you saw those performers get up on stage without a script and they create a story off of a single word suggestion. And you're like, no, that's not for me. And so I took it. I went there, stepped through that fear, and I found, and this is what was completely amazing, was that there were 15 other people just like me that were in this theater that wanted to do something. And it was in January, so a lot of people, it was like a bucket list thing. And for 2 hours, we played these games. And for 2 hours, I was completely focused. And I didn't think about my to-do list. I didn't think about all the things that were going on back at work. I just played. And these games were exercises that were helping us get better at being on stage. And I was hooked. And the next 6 days before the next improv class was amazing. Like I was just telling everyone, oh my God, I did this thing called improv. It reminded me, you remember when we were in school and we would, do recess? That's what it felt like. It felt like recess for adults. And I was like, this is nothing like I've ever done before. And I started being excited for improv. Sunday night, most people are dreading going to work on Monday. Like, oh, the weekend's over. I'm like, it's Monday, it's improv day. And one thing happened, or a few things happened. I started seeing these games more as life skills because that's the whole point with improvisation. We are, as a theatrical performer of improv, we're playing these games as a way to help us be able to deal in scenarios where we're on stage and we're without a script. And how can we, develop that skill? And so everything goes through play. But I also saw how these skills could be used in the boardroom, how they could be used with team environments. And I started bringing the games to my team. And so that is the catalyst. So I just want to time out there. And that is how I got started with it.
I love it. So we got a bunch of people joining us. Sherry says hi. Sherry's up in Washington. Hey, Cher Bear. We've got Amy here. Amy's like, this really hits home for me. I worked on getting over my fear last year. So high five to Amy for getting over the fear of going live and launching her show, Coaches Go Social. Amy also took Toastmasters. And as you said that, I tried Toastmasters, Gary. I don't like getting judged on my ums and my ahs. And it was just, funny I'm going to say this, too structured for me. Because I like structure. I really do. Like, tell me what to do, what time to do it. I will be there. I will practice. But for me, it was a little too boring, a little too structured, a little too critical. Like, so you were so nervous, right? Like, I think I just needed a more open format. So I'm really thinking improv. Wow, that's going to get me excited, not nervous. I think that might be a better fit to improve my speaking. So Amy says improv is her next step. She also loves the sound effects. Is it Eli? Hi, Mary and Gary. I can relate to the fear of public speaking. Well, you know what? We're all afraid of public speaking. It's just that we've been practicing for a long time, right, Gary?
Mm-hmm. We have.
Yeah. So you guys, it's okay to be afraid. So thank you for telling us your story and your journey. I'm so excited to be learning from you along with my audience today. Now, we're going to go over 3 things today, you guys. So I'm going to tell you what those are. 3 things. The elements that most presenters overlook, that if you add it, your audience, you'll have your audience hanging on every word. Yeah, I wanna hear about that. Item or number 2 is why you need to ditch the script and what to do instead. I love that. It's a little scary for a lot of us, right? Me included, you guys. And a strategy that will instantly gain your audience trust and have them rooting for you. Audience engagement? Why, heck yes. I can't wait to learn all of these secret tips that you're going to share with us, Gary. So let's dive in. I'm really curious. What is the element that presenters are overlooking? We know it's not PowerPoint. It's not Canva. It's not reading from a script. I have some ideas because I love audience engagement, right? As a speaker, yes. Gary, isn't that where we get our energy from?
Yes, exactly. So this is all right. I'm gonna mention this, but Mary, when I talk about it, you're gonna be like, duh. Like it's one of those things that some people, like Mary, does very naturally. But this is the cool thing. I like to tell people, would you like to be sort of hit or miss, or would you like to be consistent? And once I learned this, I started being more consistent because I knew this was an element that was going to gain rapport. So before, and this is our mutual friend, Stephanie Lou. She is a wizard at this. And as far as communication, she is grandmaster level. She literally has powered up so many times, she's way up there. But nonetheless, most presenters overlook themselves. And it sounds silly, but it's like they put on presenter hat and they see people that they admire and they're like, all right, that's how they present. I need to present like them. And so they don't bring themselves. And it seems very, it's weird. It's hard to describe. And as an audience member, we all can remember a time when someone might have said the right things. You're like, all right, this is making sense, but it just doesn't fit. And so, quick story. This is a little bit embarrassing. I'm just going to be honest. When I was in high school, I wanted to look cool. Who didn't want to be cool in high school? But let's just be honest. I was a big nerd. I was drum major in band. I was in JROTC. And so for any band nerds out there, people are ROTC, you're like, that's not a nerdy thing. I get you. But anyways, I wanted to seem cool. And so what I did was my dad had this leather jacket. And I was like, this is in the 90s. I'm just going to preface this. This was in the 90s. So I would wear my dad's leather jacket thinking I'm cool. So I'm going to class with this leather jacket and my dorky backpack. And it didn't fit me right, because it was made for an adult and I'm 15. And so the arms are a little bit too big and it just didn't fit right. It was maybe a little bit too long. I hadn't had that growth spurt. To be honest, I'm still waiting on it. But anywho, but I thought I was doing the right thing. But people can tell that just seems kind of awkward. And so that is exactly with you in your speaking when you're trying to be someone other than yourself. It's just not going to be congruent.
So true. It kind of reminds me of, you see, in high school, you see someone with a great outfit. You're like, oh, I want that outfit. You put it on. Why? It's a great outfit on them. It's not a great outfit on you, right? It doesn't fit you quite right, like your jacket. So as a speaker, you might see someone speak and you're like, oh, I want to be right. I just want to be like them. I want to speak eloquently. I want to communicate like that. But that might not be your style. So for me, my style is very casual. Very casual and conversational. It's real, right? Who I am online is who I am offline. And I'm sure you can attest to that, and several of the people watching. So I think you're right. Duh. We have to be ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have to speak from our hearts.
Exactly. And then to pile onto that, there's a few things. One, again, we think we need to be perfect. In taking improv, there's a number of tenets in improv that helps us be able to speak on stage without a script. And one of the tenets of improv that most adults have a challenge with, but it's so true, is embrace mistakes, embrace failure. In improv, we like to say there are no mistakes, only gifts. And so as a presenter, as a speaker, we think that we need to be perfect. We think we need to be polished. We think we need to like shut everything else out because we have this message and we want people to like think that we're amazing, put us on the pedestal. But in reality, we have to be honest. We have to be authentic. And if we make a mistake, if we say the wrong thing, own it. Like, again, think about people that you really admire. I'm pretty sure they've flubbed a few words here and there, and maybe they said things a little bit wrong or they weren't perfect, but you accept it. Matter of fact, what actually happens, I'm just going to break down and throw some science at you, is when people are being themselves, mistakes and all, and they're owning it, you are actually, in your brain, you're producing oxytocin and serotonin. Those are the neurochemicals that make you trust the person and feel like you belong. And there was a study where they had this person record this talk. And right before the talk, this person spilled coffee on themselves and they profusely apologized, like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. And so then they did the talk. And then they played the talk, two versions of the talk, for two groups, different groups of people. And they wanted to know how trusting you were of the person. And so the first group, they heard the whole recording in its entirety, mistake and all, and the person apologizing it. The second group, they just got the mistake was cut out. And guess what? Most people would think, oh, the person, the version of the talk where the mistake was cut out, they trusted them a bit more. Well, guess what? No, it was the one with the mistake. Because when the person apologized of what was going on, like, you got that oxytocin, you got that serotonin, you started trusting them more. So for you, as you're thinking about getting on stages, if you're nervous, if you're like, I know there's the tips of like power pose and all this other stuff, do it. Don't get me wrong. But like in that moment, when you're on stage, if you feel nervous and you call it out, again, you're just being your authentic self. So bring that.
I think, so what I got out of that is, yes, we have to try things. We were talking before the show about all these crazy things that I've done, overcoming fear, which is just a show in itself. We'll do one day. But I think if we as speakers can learn to be our authentic selves, we're also more relatable to the audience. We're humanizing ourselves. We're humanizing our presentation. We're being our true authentic self, whether it's someone who's quieter on stage or someone who uses their hands and is really loud like me. I don't want to distract my audience too much, but this is who I am. And that I feel that makes you more relatable to your audience. And if you can be more relatable to your audience, they can trust you, right?
Yep. And so let me preface with this too. Like, you're thinking about like, oh yeah, I want to be my authentic self, but I don't know what that is on stage because I haven't really done it yet. So on the path to mastery, there are a few steps. And the first step is imitation. And that is a normal step. So I have a 3-year-old son named Garrett. And that little dude, he's a crack up. But he's always learning. He's always learning things. And he's imitating mommy and daddy. That's step one, imitation. So as you're learning how to be a better presenter, you're probably going to find yourself imitating other people. That is normal. But that goes into step 2, which is integration. And this is where most people don't realize that, and this comes from confidence, comes from the heart, is it becomes you. The more that you start to like imitate and practice, it starts to, it starts to be integrated. Then we get to level 3, which is improvisation. This is where you're going to start to remix it. You've been imitating someone that you admire. You've been reading books. and it's starting to be integrated. Now you're sort of remixing, you're improvising, and then it gets to level 4, Stephanie Liu status, which is mastery. And most people stay in the imitation, and they don't get the confidence to get to mastery.
Okay. So be authentic. You can aspire to be, like someone else, but you have to own it.
Yes.
So you need to be authentic so you become relatable to your audience, so your audience will trust you, and be okay with failure and slipping up, because you know what? Everyone does it. Even the Mari Smiths and the Vivica Von Rossens, these keynote speakers that we all look up to, and I love them. Vivica, I remember, came on stage and talked about she'd had hip surgery. And she opened with, hey, if I'm limping a little bit, hey, you guys, it's just because I'm wearing these heels and I shouldn't be. Like, she was so real. And then she dove into her topic. So, I really enjoy speakers who kind of start with that personal story, who are really relatable and honest and authentic.
Yeah, they're vulnerable.
Yeah, they're vulnerable. So that kind of leads in, Gary, would you say, to tip number 2, topic number 2?
Yes!
The name of the show, which is Ditch the Script. Now, when I first started, I would write up everything I was going to say, so I was so nervous. And now I just have like a bullet point outline. But ditching the script is scary. Anyone who's watching, do you do live shows with a script? I would love to know. Amy, Sherry, Eli, these people that are watching, do you use a script when you're doing a live show? And Gary, I'm going to turn it over to you. I want you to explain why we should ditch the script.
Yes. So I'm gonna tell a story. I was at this conference that I go to all the time in Portland, Oregon. It's called the World Domination Summit. If you've never heard of it, well, now you've heard of it, and it's not what you think. It's an amazing conference, and people who are WDS fans, they know what's up. And I was there. And the thing with the World Domination Summit is that they bring amazing speakers. These people are not just critically acclaimed. They have done awesome things. They have awesome stories. And there was this one person, I'm not going to mention their name or anything like that, but I'm just going to tell you the impact. They were so polished. They gave like textbook perfect presentation. Slides were well designed. They had all their pivots, their pauses, and something didn't feel right. And I was curious on if they were scripted, and so I was talking to him, and I was asking. I was like, "Wow, I really loved your presentation. Tell me about your process. Do you script?" And he's like, "Yeah, because I don't want to miss anything, so I script it and I rehearse the script, and I'm doing the script." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And that's the thing with the script, is that a few things. One, when you are reading a script, a lot of times you are so focused on the next thing, that you leave out, number one, yourself, and you become a robot, and you leave out the emotions. And I get it. Like, you have important points. Instead of ditching like the script entirely, maybe you script the beginning because that's important. You script the end to make sure you have that. And I'll tell you what to do in just a moment. But this is some of the downsides with having a script, is that you don't get a chance to read the audience. Your audience are going to give you cues. Maybe the audience is, like starting to doze off, or maybe they're getting a little distracted. And that's your cue to like, all right, boom, maybe I inject a story right here. Maybe I do this, maybe I do that. Like, you have to be able to read your audience. But if you're stuck in script land,
like your robot mode.
Like a robot. Like it's like a train, heading, the express train is like, oh, sorry, we have no stops here. We can't adjust. And
right.
But this the other thing about a script. This happens. If you forget the script, or you get off, or something happens and it distracts you, then you're like this.
Then you're the deer in headlights, like, what's next?
Yeah, right.
Wait. I skipped to number 5. I can't go on.
Or you get tech issues, and you're complete, because it's all tied together. You can't move on. You are completely frozen. And I gave a TEDx talk, forgive me, or a year ago, and I got a glimpse into like behind the scenes of the TEDx world, and I I had an outline. I'll tell you about my process in just a moment.
Okay.
But a lot of people had scripts. And one thing, and I don't know if they want you to know this, but when you do your TEDx, there are two presentations. There's the presentation for the audience, and then there's the online presentation.
Oh,
And they tell you, if you make a mistake, to pause and then redo that next line. And then when they do the editing, they will cut that out. And I found so many people in the rehearsal, the dress rehearsal, they were like literally reading their script. Like, this is the day before. They're reading their script, and I'm like, what? Like, I just didn't get it. Like I said, the process, like you integrate, becomes part of you. Like, I'm not saying we wing everything. No, I practice. I think when I did my TEDx, I think I did maybe 100 run-throughs, and I was doing iterations. But this is my process, so I'm going to talk about what I do.
Okay, give us your process. We're all waiting. We're on the edge of our seats, Gary. I can't wait.
So, again, Mary, you're going to say no, darling, like, because you are, believe it or not, you are a Jedi Master. Like, you have some very intuitive stuff. So first and foremost, yes, you may want to script in the beginning. Like, you want to get all of that stuff out there. Like I said, sometimes it's important to have a script in the beginning and the end, so that way you can gain rapport. You can do all the cues that Stephanie Liu talks about in her communications training to make sure that you're dialed in. And then at the end, you want to make sure that you have that call to action, all that stuff dialed in. Gotcha. But for the rest of them, I do a few things. I have bullet points. So in improv is very theatrics. So we have what we call beats. What are the things that are going to happen? And so I do, dropping a beat. But they're beats as in moments in the scene. So I have like bullet points of like, this is what I'm going to do. But here's another trick.
Okay.
I write the bullet point as if it was a question. So I write it as a question, so it's triggering my brain to answer the question.
Oh, Jedi Master.
And then this is the other thing. Guess what? As humans, we are better at recognizing pictures than words.
Oh, yes.
So if it's something very important, not only will I do the bullet points, which are questions that are going to trigger my brain to answer the question, because this is the thing about our unconscious mind. We can't help but to answer a question. If I were to ask you right now, what's your phone number? You're not going to answer me, but your brain already told you what your phone number was right now.
It just went off in my head.
Yeah, and for you watching, like, I bet you're like, oh yeah, that's my phone number. That's the thing with questions. They're so freaking powerful. And then if it's very important, I will draw like a crude little icon, because then, and I learned this, so invested a lot of money to learn some of these Jedi presentation tricks, but I would make it in a circle, like a clock, and each one will have an icon. And so if I get lost, I start to think, where on the clock are we in the presentation? What is the icon? And then the question starts to pop up at me. And this the other thing, because this is especially people who aren't used to being on stages, whether it's stages like a virtual stage or in the boardroom or whatever, at the end of the day, no one has a script, like saying, oh, Mary was supposed to say this, she missed her cue. Right. Like, this is
nobody knows but us.
Right? Exactly. And so this is the thing. When I give presentations, sometimes I cut complete sections out, because I'm like, you know what? The audience isn't jiving with this. They're a little bit more advanced. They're not going to need this. Or this is a big thing as a presenter. I respect the time that people have given me. So I do not want to go over. So if we're like sort of vibing and, the audience is maybe asking questions and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to be out of time, I will edit. I will cut things out. Instead of what most people do, like, all right, cool. So I'm going to go through these things. All right, cool. So we're going to speed through all this and bloom. And then you're just like, it's like a fire hose of information in your face. and you're right. And you're like, and you're not going to retain anything.
Right.
As a listener. And so I will like edit and I will cut, and no one will be none the wiser. And so this is the thing. If you have a script, you can't jive like that.
And so what I think about when you're saying you edit it while you're on stage or presenting, your improv has helped you be able to edit. So Amy, I know you said you want to do improv. Girl, me and you, we're going to find improv. Well, I guess it'll have to be online now, though.
It's
weird.
cool. I got you.
Yeah.
It's weird. You know, it's one of those things where, like, in theory, it seems weird, just like, you know, phone sex or whatever. But like, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Was I supposed to bleep that out? Should we have bleeped that
No,
out?
I don't care. Again, it's all about being real and relatable and authentic. It just caught me by surprise. I'm probably turning red. I love it. No, but I was just, I think improv will probably help speakers being able to pivot and edit and read the audience better. So Amy said, let's do it. She said, that's a cool trick. Let's do it. Amy, somehow we're going to do some improv. Gary's going to hook us up with something and we're going to woo, woo, woo. Yeah, I love this. This is so fun. So Gary, we're running out of time because I like to
Yes,
keep
we are.
it short and sweet because I'm known for bite-sized tips. So number 3 is a strategy that will instantly gain your audience trust and have them rooting for you. And I think part of that we've been talking about, but is there a specific strategy that we need to have? Okay, give it to us. I'm ready.
So I call it the Angel's Cocktail, and I learned this from a number of different people. There's a TED Talk that is called, I think, The Storytelling Science, and it's by this amazing gentleman that has such a beautiful British accent. And then another mentor of mine, her name is Vanessa Van Edwards. She's at thescienceofpeople.com. She talks about like the science of just being a human and interacting with people. And I call it the DOSE, D-O-S-E. And so DOSE is an acronym. And if you can do the things that are going to elicit these things, you're going to have your audience on the edge of their seat, taking in word from word from word. So D stands for dopamine. How can you elicit dopamine? And dopamine is any sort of storytelling, because guess what? When you tell storytelling, people are on the edge of their seat because they're like, what is next? If you leave people with a cliffhanger, it elicits dopamine. Dopamine helps you be more creative. It helps you be more focused. It helps you remember things longer. So O is oxytocin. And oxytocin is that, that trust home. It's that feeling of belonging. And so when you do that, again, stories, if you can make people feel comfortable, if you're nervous, you let people know that you're nervous, then like, all right, cool. All right. Then S, serotonin. Serotonin is that trust hormone. If you can tell a story where people can feel empathy for the subject, so maybe a vulnerable story of yourself, it could be something about maybe some of the people you work with, you're going to get that's going to elicit trust. And then E, endorphins. This is the thing that most presenters overlook. Endorphins happens when you laugh, and endorphins help you be more creative, helps you be more focused, helps you remember things. And that again comes from humor. How can you inject humor into your talks? And you may be a scientist and you think this is very serious, but guess what? Just a little bit of levity goes a long way. And we're not telling you to be a stand-up comedian. We're just saying, how can you add a little bit of humor? And a good friend of mine, his name is Drew Tarvin. He has he coined what is called the MAP. So what is the method? Who is the audience? And what's the purpose? And when you think about humor through that lens, it helps you just add just enough, just a sprinkle of humor, and that is the dose. If you can add those things into your presentation, you will gain trust, you will get their attention, and they will forgive you. One last thing, guess what? They're already rooting for you. They're rooting for you. Like, I mentioned this multiple times on various talks that I've been in. I don't think there is any talk that anyone's ever given where the people are like, I hope this person flops.
You're right, because it's not in our nature to say, I'm going to watch someone talk and like, man, I just hope they fall off the stage. I hope they suck. That's not the intention of the audience. They're there to root you on. Give them something for them to cheer about, right?
Yeah, agreed.
I love it. So the map, what was the map again? Because I didn't write that down.
Yeah. What is the method? I'm going to do it via virtual. I'm going to whatever. Who's the audience? So again, you need to know your audience. And what's the purpose? Is it the purpose of getting someone's attention? Is the purpose of connecting the dots?
Educate, entertain.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
if you think of humor through that lens, then you can use the right amount of humor so that, again, it's all about getting endorphins. Endorphins, like, we love to laugh. We love to laugh. And when you
Yes.
laugh, you remember things longer compared to, guess what? This is the opposite. Most presenters,
Yes.
they elicit what is called the devil's cocktail, and the devil's cocktail is serotonin, not serotonin, sorry, cortisol and adrenaline. And cortisol,
Yeah.
right? Cortisol is the stress hormone.
Yeah.
It makes you make rash choices. Do you want to be presenting and have your audience make a poor decision? Probably not. Guess what? When you have cortisol, you have short-term memory loss. Do you want your audience to forget about you? And guess what? Most people elicit the devil's cocktail. One, because they're super nervous and they don't want to acknowledge that. And they are like frantic because they're trying to remember a script. And so, yes, Amy, I am trained in a little bit of NLP. And so, yes, that's where some of that comes from. I bring in anything and everything, and I throw it all out, sort of like Mary with her bakery. So I put it all together in a
Lots
little.
of ingredients. What do you want to whip up today?
So don't have the devil's cocktail because your people are going to forget about you. And most of the time, because you're trying to be someone else, you're going to elicit the devil's cocktail.
No devil's cocktail. These are great tips. I took a bunch of notes. I'm going to go back in and we'll create some images with the pro tips, right, Gary? And we'll go back in. I know we'll get a lot of traction on the replay. We'll send this out to everyone. Totally, cortisol is no bueno. That's right. So lots of great comments, you guys. Thanks for spending time with Gary. This is like the Gary and Mary show.
Gary and Mary. Gary.
Having a little fun here. Gary, thank you for your time today. Gary, I got two questions. Where can people find you, connect with you? What platform? How do you want them to reach out if they want to learn more or hire you as a speaker?
Right, exactly. Well, my name is pretty easy to remember, Gary Ware. Most people call me by my full name, Gary Ware. So you could look Gary Ware up on the social medias. You'll find me. My website is Breakthrough Cocktail. Nope, that's my old website. Forgive me. Made a mistake. Breakthrough Play. Yeah, that's an example. Just ask for forgiveness. Breakthroughplay.com. And if you are looking to get better at presenting, I do have a gift. I have two storytelling games that are based in improvisation that will help you get better at being a better storyteller, being able to think on your feet. And I'll leave that link. Where should I leave that link?
You can leave it in the comments.
I'll put it in the comments.
And then I'll also make sure, Gary, we send this out to my email list with a replay. And so I'll make sure that we grab that link. And I love gifts. I usually like giving gifts, but hey, I'll take a gift to help me be a better speaker. Amy, you and I will have to look at that and see what that's all about. That's fabulous. So Gary, one last question before we sign off.
Yo.
Where do you want to travel to when we're released from lockdown?
Oh my gosh. Have you been spying on me? Because I feel like that's what me and my wife, we've been doing. Like, we've been like, oh, where's a cool place? I would love to go somewhere tropical. I'm like totally down, like Jamaica.
Speaking my language.
Right? Some sort of island, just back
Blue water, white
right?
sand beach, cold drink in my hand, a little umbrella. Oh yeah. Maybe some dolphins to play with out in the water because, you know.
Yeah, that's how we get down. Right?
Yeah. There's my dolphin. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Hey, if you like this show, please subscribe. You can subscribe over on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And finally, you guys, if you're looking to level up your LinkedIn presence, I'm doing strategy sessions for the next month at a reduced price. So I will put that coupon code over here and we will see you next time. I have a special edition of Bite-Sized Tips for Busy Entrepreneurs next Wednesday with Annette from Easel from Down Under. That's right. We're talking about Easel and how to make amazing graphics so you can stand out and how easy it is. So you guys, thank you so much. Much love to you guys, for everyone. Amy says we're going to end with Atlantis and the Bahamas. Oh, and Paris, because she won that damn trip. Lucky girl. I'm so happy for you. Really, I am. So she's going to Paris probably next year. Hey, can't beat that.
Hey, right?
Okay, you guys, this is Mary Fane Brandt with Bite-Sized Tips for Busy Entrepreneurs. See you next week. Ciao.